So obviously the big question that we've got to ask is what drew the Labour people who would traditionally vote Labour over to Johnson? And the predominant one is really Brexit. A lot of these people were so fed up of Brexit, and trust me, as I've said on this channel multiple times, this is only the beginning of the beginning. You haven't even heard the last of Brexit. And as we have said on this channel multiple times, there are no upsides to Brexit, only downsides. It will cause incredible damage, especially to the people up north who voted for Brexit. Now, this is, I think, it's a general, very good question to ask. That basically the question is this Conservative victory a one-hit Brexit wonder? And I think it very well might be. It is an election that has, in many ways, left the country deeply divided. Most obviously between big city and large town, between England and Wales on one hand, and Scotland and to a lesser extent Northern Ireland on the other. A final swing from Labour to the Conservative is around 4.6%. Not quite as dramatic as Margaret Thatcher's win in 1979, which was 5.2%, or David Cameron's in 2010, which was a 5%. And certainly nothing like Tony Blair's win for Labour in 1997, which was a 10% swing. But it is big enough, particularly given that it is the fourth win for the Tories in a row, coming at a time when governments are usually exhausted. In fact, the Conservative Party's share of the vote is the highest level since that landmark victory in 1979. The swings this time range from 7.9% in the North East to 6.5% in the West Midlands and 5.3% in Wales. But in the South East, the swing to the Conservatives was 3.6%, and in London a more modest 2.7%. While in Scotland, it was the Scottish National Party that won 48 out of the 59 seats. Full demographic studies emerge months after an election, but they will almost certainly show that the sharp divide between younger and older voters has not been eroded by this last election. Age is still the sharpest divide in British politics today, said Martin Boom from the polling firm Delta Poll. Pre-election polls such as the number crunchers politics have shown support for Labour amongst the 14 to 40-year-olds, 18 to 24-year-olds at 71%, and among 25 to 34-year-olds at 59%, with the Conservative government offering no compelling solution to their concerns, such as affordability of homes or the levels of student debt. So, in a way, sooner or later we will get a Labour government. It's only a matter of time. And more and more of those people are gonna say, look, it's the Conservatives that are the problem, and they're only going to make things worse. As we said in the last video with this majority, they can only screw up big, loudly, and very clearly. So all the voters have a different view. The same figures have the two main parties among almost neck and neck amongst the 35 to 44s, while among the 55 to 64s, Conservative report runs at 56%, and this rises to 64% of those aged 65 and above. But it is not enough for Jeremy Corbyn's Labour to hope it represents a generational project and that the party can somehow age its way to victory. Building out from university seats it hung onto, such as Canterbury and Warwick and Leamington, not at least because so many other respects the electorate is united against it. The most interesting variable here is social class. The Conservatives lead Labour among the AB voters, senior and middle professionals, junior and white collar workers, the C1 and C2 skilled workers in the last category by 64 to 33. According to the final pre-election poll from IMC, only among the DE group, the semi-skilled, unemployed, and pensioners, is Labour ahead by just 3 points, 42 to 39, underlining how the popularity of the Conservatives almost led Boris Johnson's party to sweeping the board. Look again at that 13-point lead among the C2 voters. It is almost as if the Conservatives understood working class voters better than the Party of the Workers, and was shown in the capturing of the seats such as Redcar, Burnley and Newcastle under Lyme. For the first time, the Tories have ever held that seat for a century. Those who ran focus groups in the north of England report how struck they were by the credibility of the Conservatives pared down to one policy campaign, finish the first stage of the Brexit process with us, or endure further referendum under Labour. Clearly, the implied cultural nationalism hit home. Labour's strategy to make the 1.4 billion of promises was often met with derision. Deborah Mason from Britain think tank said that people would often joke about what else Labour was promising for free. Lots of other policies Labour promised were popular individually, but when mashed together with a simple message, people switched off. The question now becomes whether the electoral realignment endures, or whether the words of the former Labour MP Galza Stewart, Leavers were simply leading their votes to enable Brexit. Voting for Brexit this time does not make me a Tory now or in the future, she said a fortnight ago. In another sense, this argument is irrelevant. The post-war history of Britain shows that the people can reach dramatically different conclusions between one election and the next, although it usually takes a fresh leader to do it, and an argument that it is won in the national culture long before the campaign begins. The fourth in the row disaster for Labour in 1992, sorry, I was going to say 2002. 1992 was followed by the landslide in 1997. This time around, the Tories probably won the argument in September and October once it was clear that Brexit could not get through the Commons after all. And Johnson's party started the campaign with a 10-point poll lead and ended it with 11.6 points and a majority of 80 ahead. So there you go, and that is the interesting question, and that is relatively true. Voters are not the same from election to election. They have different priorities. They have different ideas from time to time. Again, you saw this, and I think this time you can very easily put down Labour lost because of Corbyn, which is infuriating because I have problems with Corbyn. I've said this before. I think he would be a far better deputy. But this election, I couldn't put a foot wrong with him. He was knocking speeches out left and right, out of the park, giving it full energy. He was all go. The unfortunate one was that it came down to Brexit. And here's the thing. It is going to be an absolute disaster. And the good thing is congratulations, Leavers. You have galvanised an entire new, more stronger, the rejoin movement than ever. It is far stronger than your leave movement ever was. And oh boy, if we do leave, you are gonna have to endure us, crying and moaning until we rejoin. And here's the thing, people. Brexit is going to be an absolute unadulterated mess, and it is going to be on the people who actually put it into place. You cannot make any excuses that it is us anymore holding it back when it never was to begin with. Those excuses have finally run out. So here's the thing. I've said this on this channel before. All roads, once we leave, lead back to going back into Europe. And it's only just a matter of time before we go back in.